Optimove, the leader in positionless marketing, frees marketing teams from the limitations of fixed roles, boosting campaign efficiency by 88%. Its positionless marketing platform delivers 3 transformative powers: data power for real-time customer insights, creative power for instant asset creation, and optimization power for self-optimizing campaigns. With Optimove, you can do anything and be everything. Go to optimove.com/total retail to get your first month free when buying Optimove's positionless marketing platform.
Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Total Retail Talks. I'm Joe Keenan, the editor-in-chief of Total Retail. I'm pleased to be joined on today's episode by Leslie Marino, who is the president of L'Oreal's Professional Products Division. In fact, Leslie is the first woman U.S. president of L'Oreal's Professional Products Division. So I'm really excited to have the opportunity to speak with her, talk a little bit about her leadership journey, as well as kind of learn a little bit more about the Professional Products Division within L'Oreal. I think our audience knows L'Oreal, but we'll get a little bit more into her particular role within the organization. So, Leslie, thanks for taking the time to join me today.
So happy to be here, Joe. Thank you for having me.
So as I alluded right at the start, you made history, and something that you should be extremely proud of. You're the first woman to lead L'Oreal's Professional Products Division in the United States. So with that in mind, I'd love for you to tell our audience a little bit about the journey that got you to that spot, and how you think about leadership and breaking barriers, particularly within the beauty space.
Yeah. Well, I've actually been at L'Oreal a remarkable 34 years.
Congratulations there.
I know. It's been an incredible journey, but it goes so quickly. But when I started at L'Oreal, I was the year I started, I got married. 2 years later, I had my daughter Katie, and then a few years later, I had my son. So I was a young working mother when I started my career here at L'Oreal, and I would say at that time it's very different than it is today. We didn't have the same number of women leaders at the top. I'm proud to say that more than half of our top leadership at L'Oreal are females. But it wasn't that way when I started. And so being an ambitious young businesswoman who was starting a family, I really needed early on to figure out how I was going to balance that at a time when I didn't have a lot of role models. And so one of the things that I did well, I think it was just an instinct that kicked in, was figuring out how to kind of manage both in a way that enabled me to really get the work done in a very competitive environment, very dynamic, but also set some boundaries even at a young age. And I think I figured out how to do that, where I was very clear about what I needed for my family, for my husband, and managing a workload that allowed me to not just deliver results, but do that in a way that enabled me to get where I am today. And so I role modeled that early on. And today, one of the things I spend a lot of my time, and my executive assistant always, looks at my calendar and says, how are we going to find the time, is I spend a lot of time mentoring a lot of other executive women at L'Oreal. My calendar every week, I'm connecting with people because I do feel such an incredible responsibility to pay it forward and to be there for women as they take on, this dual responsibility at home and at work, and to help them through it. And I will tell you that I've had some incredible mentors in my career, one of whom was my boss when I was in the luxury division, Carol Hamilton, who's a beauty icon. She has mentored me for decades and has made such an incredible difference in helping me navigate not just the beauty landscape here in the U.S. at L'Oreal, but the dynamics of working in a French company and a global company, which has additional challenges as a leader. So I'm grateful for my women mentors. I do spend time, and it makes me feel so good, paying it forward. And my recommendation for other women is to find like-minded women and mentors in their life, because it's a game changer.
So thank you for that. And you should be commended for the mentoring that you're doing to help kind of to kind of create that pipeline for the next generation of women leaders. I'm going to ask you to, I'm going to have a quick follow up and take you back
Yeah.
34 years when you were just
Okay.
starting.
Yeah.
Did you aspire, you're a young mom, you're balancing,
Yeah.
you're just getting started in your career. Did you aspire to kind of, reach the top of the food chain, so to speak, here in the president's role? Was it something that was like you had this grand vision, or it's just the one step after the other, and you're like, okay, this is something I want to kind of pursue?
This is the perfect question. I love it because the answer to that is that when I started, I actually started in sales. I was a account executive for Lancome. I was living in Boston. I kind of stumbled. I had worked in retail prior to that. I worked at a department store called Jordan Marsh in Boston. The beauty area was one of my responsibilities, and so I quickly had this connection and fell in love with beauty, and that's how I got my opportunity with Lancome. But I started out in sales. In fact, I spent my first 18 years in sales. And my first boss started working with me. He was the president of the fragrance division at the time. And he sat me down and said, I think you can do more than sales. He said, I think you've got the qualities. I think you've got the ambition and the potential to be more than that. And I remember being so astonished. I've always, my parents raised my brothers and I to have a really strong work ethic. I've always had a job throughout my whole life. I've always worked really hard, but I never saw myself in any kind of position like that. And so it really, and not only did he share that vision, but he and then other mentors beyond helped me get there. But it took that first boss to say, to say to me, I think you can do more. And I think he said, I think you can become the head of sales, which I did. And then later on, he said, I think you actually can become a general manager. And I actually was the first woman at L'Oreal to become a general manager of a brand without having been in marketing. I went from being in sales to running a business. And so if it weren't for that mentor, I don't know if I would be here because I didn't see that in myself on my own.
Yeah, that's interesting. Your last point there is what I was going to follow up. It's interesting that sometimes it takes the someone else from, whether it's a boss, a mentor, someone else having belief in you to then
Yeah.
spark that own belief in yourself
Yeah.
that yes, I can do this, right? So
Yeah.
it's interesting how that worked in your career.
Well, and in addition to that, Joe, what he also did for me was then created opportunities for me to get the experience that I needed to become the head of sales and take on, a GM role. And so the mentoring, and then he kind of helped me figure out what was my next job and what was the job after that, my succession planning, to get me kind of the experiences I would need to take on some of these big opportunities. So I'm very grateful.
So let's talk a little bit. I mentioned, and I think everyone in the audience knows L'Oreal. It's this legacy brand, right? Rich heritage, tradition behind
Yeah.
it. With that in mind, retail and consumer product, it's a quickly evolving, moving space.
Yeah.
So I'd love to get your thoughts on how you think about kind of balancing that legacy that has been created with L'Oreal
Yeah.
with also embracing innovation and change, particularly within the professional products division.
Yeah. This is another great question because actually the professional products division of L'Oreal, there's actually 4 divisions of L'Oreal. We have our prestige products that are sold in specialty and department stores. We have our consumer products that are sold in food, mass, and drug. And we have our derm division that are sold across all of those channels. But we're the professional products division. And what you may not know is that our company was started by a chemist named Eugene Schuller, who invented hair color. So the legacy of L'Oreal started with our division. And we always feel that deeply because our division is the legacy of L'Oreal. And so here we are 100 years later, partnering with professionals, hairdressers, in salons, helping them perfect their craft and create the best hair color services in the industry. At the same time, we also have a consumer aspect of our business, hair care and styling products that we're selling to consumers. So we have this, we are the only division in the company that is selling to professionals
Hmm.
and actually selling our products to consumers. So I want to start just to answer that question about driving change and innovation on the pro side, because it's super interesting. There are 1.4 million hairdressers in the US, and there's over 25,000 salons. One of the things that we do is we create technical products to help hairdressers provide the best treatments, the best hair color services, and we sell those products to them. And we spend a lot of our investments to educate them on how to use it. So the relationship with what I'll call these small business owners is very, very codependent and very close, because they really need us to help them be the most successful they can be in running their business. A big part of what we do is serve small business owners. And when you talk about having purpose in your life, when you sell to a small business owner who's employing, 20 to 30 people, and you're able to help them make their business successful, my cup runneth over every day, because that's such meaningful work. And what we spend a lot of energy doing is trying to modernize the professional industry, because historically and today, many professionals don't open a salon business because they want to run a business. They want to perform the art of hairdressing. And so they often are very light in understanding business. And so we work very hard to help them run the best business possible for themselves and for the people who work for them. We spend a lot of our investment, again, educating and helping them be successful. On the consumer side, we're working very hard to create the very best hair take-home products for consumers. And what helps us bring really incredible innovation to consumers is the fact that we have this proximity to professionals who are experts in hair, who know everything you need to know about what a different hair type needs. And so our artists and our educators are a great source of inspiration and insight on how we formulate products.
Yeah, that's that feedback loop, right? That you tap into. You have both sides to you, the kind of the professional and then the consumer.
You said it perfectly. And when you ask consumers what matters to them when choosing, hair care products, they'll often say the endorsement of the professional, that it's used by the hands of a pro makes a difference in their choice. We, again, spend a lot of time innovating and creating products for consumers. And what's interesting about how the innovation on the consumer side in hair has changed is typically in the US, consumers, we're very much a shampoo and conditioner market.
Mm-hmm.
Shampoo, conditioner, but we identified a trend a few years back, which really shows the sophistication of the consumer around treatments, serums, leave-in products after you wash and condition your hair. And it's been growing. And last year, treatments as a category actually became larger than shampoos, which really shows how sophisticated this consumer has gotten around understanding the efficacy of these treatments. And it also really shows how consumers care about their hair, their scalp, and are really looking for very sophisticated products. And so when we saw this trend happening, we really leaned in, and not just from a product creation, but from an investment standpoint, to really drive our treatment business. And treatments are what is growing the market, and we've gained tremendous share by really focusing on this segment of the business.
I love the fact that you talked about the education that is kind of part of the relationship with your professional clients, customers. Yeah. And I do want to follow up. And then to your point, it's also the consumers doing their own education, right? They're searching out, things, whether it's on digital, whether conversations to your point, with their hairstylist, with the workers that are salon, because they've got that trusted relationship. They're part of the community, to your point. These are small businesses in large part. So, so I do want to follow up on that education part. But before I do that, and I thank you for kind of giving a context a little bit for the audience on how the professional product division sits within L'Oreal. So in that kind of mold, I'd love for you to talk about, I know you oversee a portfolio of brands, correct?
I do.
So can you talk a little bit about those brands and how you ensure kind of each brand has its own unique identity, its own
Yeah,
unique voice for the consumer, for the professional, but
yeah,
also kind of keeping it within and aligning with that broader umbrella of the L'Oreal organization.
yeah. Well, I have the great fortune of working with what I think are some of the best professional brands in the industry. I have a portfolio of 9 brands. What's great about all of these brands is first, they have a very unique equity. And I'll give you a couple of examples. So, at the top of our market and our portfolio is Kerastase. And Kerastase is actually a brand that we created within L'Oreal I think over 60 years ago. And it is the most premium hair care brand in the US. And it's sold in salons and it's also in Sephora. It is the #1 hair care brand at Sephora. It is really built on a French heritage. It's all about like the transformation of hair. Serums and treatments are a very big aspect of this brand, but it's really about investing in the best to have the most incredible hair transformation. On the other hand, I've got a brand called Matrix, and their tagline is all hair types, all humans. It's all about accessibility, inclusivity, products for everyone, all genders, all hair types. It has a tone of voice that's fresh and young and humorous and clever, and it's the rainbow colors are the packaging. We have Redken, the #1 brand, not only in the professional industry, but it's actually the #1 brand. Actually, when you look at Market 360 across all channels, and New York, it's a New York based brand. It's cool, it's hip, it has a vibe, it has an energy that's totally unique. So we have brands that cross all pricing tiers, that have different tones of voice and expressions, some that resonate with a younger cohort, some with a more mature. But that's the power of having a portfolio like we do at the professional products division.
Yeah, I was gonna say that you've got that spectrum covered, right?
Yep.
Gender, race, age, hair, different hair type. You're serving everyone. So, so keeping yourself busy. Part of that kind of service, and we're going to go back to the kind of the relationships that you've established with your pro consumer or your professionals is that education that you
Yeah.
talked about. So, Leslie, maybe you could talk a little bit about how you
Yeah.
think about that education, particularly as digital learning becomes more common. There's a lot of social media influence. So, how do you kind of keep those relationships going with your professionals and educating them about the products that you're putting in the market?
Yeah. Well, I want to start with a staggering fact first, and then I'll tell you what we do to support this. When we look at stylists who receive education, the difference in their business is a lift of 10%, educated versus not educated. So the power of education in the hands of a stylist is critical. I would say we break it down into, I would say, kind of 3 different parts. The first is, and one that we do exceptionally well at L'Oreal, is hands-on education. Um, you wouldn't allow a surgeon to do surgery if they'd only done digital education. You're like, I kind of want to make sure they've actually learned how to use that scalpel, right? And it's the same thing for a hairdresser, and particularly, when we're talking about color, is hands-on live education is probably the #1 most important education resource so that they understand how to perform these services so that their clients are delighted. We have classes at trade shows. We have classes every week and every day at Salons 100, which is our distributor at L'Oreal. We have over 600 stores where we have classes every day, every week, teaching hairdressers their craft of color, cut, and styling. And then we do a lot of classes in salons. We come to our customers and give them education. The second piece, which is equally important to supplement live education, is digital education. And this is where hairdressers and stylists are on social. And where they consume education, their #1 place is on YouTube,
Hmm.
both long and short formats. And so we provide digital education, which will help them learn and also can inspire them to seek us out for live education beyond. So there's 2 aspects of both, the on and offline.
Yeah.
The third piece, though, that I just want to add to that is business education, because another staggering fact is only 5% of salons in the US are profitable. 10%, another 5% actually break even, and the rest are not making a profit, which is why you see, like many small businesses in the US, openings and closures, because while they most likely perform beautiful hair services, they're not able to have a business that they're able to support that. So we offer an enormous amount of business education to help them sign the biggest mistake that happens with salon owners, they sign the wrong lease. They don't know how big their sales need to be to support the size of the lease. So we invest a lot in helping them on the business side.
Yeah, that's a great point as you think about, their passion probably is hair design, right? And getting and doing the creative thought process. They don't necessarily have the training when it comes to the accounting or the commercial leasing, the things that you're talking about. So giving them that education to help them not only have a successful business, a profitable business as well.
Redken's tagline is learn, earn, and live best. And it says it all when it comes to helping stylists, who, by the way, are the most beautiful, kind, caring people. And they give so much to their clients to make them feel and look and feel their best. And they're so generous and kind that you really want to help them live their best life.
Yeah, that's great. And certainly, the mission that you guys are putting into practice. I have a couple more questions for you, Leslie. I want to stay on the digital track for a second. You
Okay.
talked about that. I know part of your role, you're overseeing digital and commercial strategy across the professional products division. So tell me a little bit about how digital is transforming how you engage both salons, but also you talked about salons a little bit, but maybe also the end
Yeah.
consumer, right? So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that.
Talk about a fast moving environment. I mean, I can't even believe how the whole digital landscape has just transformed. It feels like almost overnight. The first thing I want to say is that one of the things that I think we're known for at L'Oreal is the media side of things. I mean, this is our wheelhouse, and a lot of the full funnel media investments that we make targeting consumers, we do that all in house, and we do that in a really, really strong way that drives our business across all of our consumers. I think the piece that's the most interesting and evolving is what we're doing on digital, from an advocacy and influence standpoint specifically, because that's where we're finding a lot of impact on the business. And this is where things go viral, and there's two components to that. There's the organic aspect of digital, and then there's the paid aspect. And so one of the things we're partnering very deeply with is influencers, because so many consumers discover and get excited about products through through TikTok, through Instagram. And so we work very hard to partner with influencers who can not only bring our products to their consumers, but tell our story in a much better way than we can. And
That
there's
authenticity that they can bring, right?
it's the authenticity. I think sometimes they don't want to always hear it from the manufacturer. They
Right,
want to hear it from
right, yeah.
somebody that they follow, that they trust, who talks to them in a way that resonates for them. And we find that really moves our business in the most powerful way. So we do a lot of partnerships with influencers who again actually love our products. Many of them actually use our products, and so that partnership becomes incredibly authentic when we come together. And you can see that in the content when they love and use our products. So that's a really, really important part. I think the other dynamic is kind of like this whole 360 approach. Pop-up events where we're doing pop-up events with all of our products all over the country, which is another way to connect consumers in a very different way to, again, tell your story. Out of home is another area. So what we're finding is it's kind of this multi-layered touch of full funnel media, advocacy and influence with incredible partnerships with influencers, and then the consumer then discovers us on a billboard walking by, and there's a line of people around the block because they want to experience a new product launch. This is the landscape that we're playing in.
Yep, that fragmented landscape, multiple different touch points. And you're, at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily matter, I imagine, to you how they engage, how they interact with your brands and products. To your point, there's so many different avenues for them to do so.
100%. I think the thing that has become like top of mind for us today, increasingly, is that this whole idea of storytelling.
Mhm.
Because when you think back at what we've done historically is, messaging our consumer with what are our claims and what are our benefits, and it's not to say that that doesn't matter, but I think the art of storytelling that gets people engaged and excited and to purchase our not only purchase our products but then inspires them how to use our products
Mhm.
is really where the playing field has evolved to. And as a company and certainly our division, that's where we're focusing, is that in that art of storytelling to really bring our products to life in a way we never have before.
So to close out our conversation, Leslie, I'm going to kind of take us full circle and go back and talk a little bit about career and kind of leadership as well. So you've talked about your career journey, 34 years, that impressive growth that you've seen in your own personal career. Maybe you can share some of that
Yeah.
insight and wisdom that you've gained over
Yeah.
that time with our audience. So as you think about, can you maybe share one piece of advice with aspiring leaders, particularly women who may be trying to follow a similar path in their own careers?
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm not going to give you one. I'm going to actually give you two. And it's so
Even
funny.
better, right?
It's so funny because I have two children. My son is 28, my daughter is 32, who are early in their careers. And I was literally having some of these conversations this week with both of my children. I give a lot of advice. One of them is really about courage and conviction, because it's especially hard early in your career when you're new and you don't have your network built and you're in a meeting and you have thoughts and you have a point of view, and so many of our employees tell us they don't feel comfortable speaking out. And all I can say as the number one piece of advice is find a way to share your point of view. Not, and this is what I said to my son last night, not in a way that, those people who raise their hand first and they speak for the sake of speaking, and, it's not authentic, and they're doing it just to be heard and to be seen. My advice to people is contribute in a way that's meaningful and be comfortable if it doesn't resonate. In meetings, there will people who will have brilliant ideas, and there
Mhm.
will be ideas that we move on from. That's part of it. So if you can find the confidence to do that, it changes everything. And some of the advice that I give to the younger people starting out is plan to speak. So if you know what the topics are, take a moment to say, here are the things I want to comment on, so that you can come in saying, I'm going to look for an opportunity to share my point of view on that, and prepare for it so that you don't feel so nervous about it. And the more you do it and the more success you have, the easier it becomes. Now, here's the second part. The reason that's important is that it's important to stand out. And I say this to people who are new in their careers, and I say it to people who've been around for a long time. There's a lot of really smart people in all of our companies. Like, there's a lot of smart people out there. I mean, really, I always am amazed at the talent and the experience of people. But in order to get opportunities and be seen as somebody who's able to take the next step, people have to know who you are, have to know that how you think, and you have to make contributions. But what I say to people is, again, I go back to make it real, make it authentic, and show up as your authentic self. Don't try to show up as what you think people want you to be. Show up as your authentic self, bring your humor, be approachable, and share your thoughts and make contributions and work collaboratively as a team. Because today at L'Oreal, we are all about the teams. We are not about celebrating the individual. We're all about the contributions that the team's making together to move the business forward. And how fun, Joe, is that to be able to show up as your authentic self, to work on a team, to contribute and build ideas to move something forward. So we're all about celebrating the team over the individual. And that's, I think, should be a relief for people, that they have to work together, because working together actually is a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, I hope our audience takes heed of your words there. And there's a level of thoughtfulness, right, that you need to have. Obviously, you need to have that courage as you talked about. But to your other point, like you need to be thinking through, you need to be prepared, a level of thoughtfulness in terms of presenting your ideas and sharing your thoughts. I think there's a lot that our audience can take from that. So I appreciate you sharing, Leslie.
Well, it's interesting because I know the cliche people say mistakes are okay. You have to
Mhm.
learn from mistakes to grow. And what's interesting about that is you really do need to live that. And one of the things I do with my team all the time is I love to share the worst decisions I've ever made. And I do it with a lot of humor and a lot of honesty because I've actually made some really bad mistakes over the years. And by the way, at L'Oreal, we very much encourage people to do that because you have to have some bad ideas and learn and grow from them to garner the good ones. But I do it in a way that shows my team that I'm very well aware of what things that I've done well and things that I've not done well, and that I'm very comfortable sharing that, so that it makes people understand that they have to take risks and they have to be comfortable with understanding that it didn't work and learning how to pivot from it. So yeah, so some of those cliches are real.
No, for sure. And you're creating that environment for, to your point, individual growth, which obviously then manifests itself in team success to that larger growth, to the larger organization. Well, we are just about out of time. I could go on with Leslie for hours, but I've really enjoyed the conversation. I want to take the opportunity to thank Leslie Marino, again, the president of the Professional Products Division at L'Oreal, for joining me on this episode of Total Retail Talks. Thank you, Leslie. As I said, I really enjoyed talking with you.
Such a pleasure. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at mytotalretail.com/podcasts for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Total Retail Talks.
Optimove, the leader in positionless marketing, empowers marketers to instantly deliver real-time personalization. Boosting campaign efficiency by 88%, it allows marketers to do anything and be everything. Go to optimove.com/total retail to get your first month free when buying Optimove's positionless marketing platform.